So if for whatever reason you need to log off here, it will be broadcasted and archived on our CDE Facebook and our Ohio Family Network Facebook. And with that, a little bit about the Center for Disability Empowerment. We are a 501c3 non-residential organization that supports all people of any age with any disability. We do this through 5 core services, those being information and referral, independent living skills training, advocacy, peer support, and transition services. There are 2 components to that transition services. They are nursing home transitions, which is the coordinator for that is today's moderator, Deb Peterman. And then the youth transition services, I myself am the youth transition coordinator. And with that, we will go ahead and proceed with introductions. First, we have Veronica Gallegos.
Hi, I'm Veronica Gallegos. I am 34 years old. I'm from El Paso, Texas. I am a CIS, which is Communities and Schools Coordinator. I have my degree in social work from the University of Texas at El Paso. I have a 15-year-old son and a husband. They're in that beautiful picture right there, and a dog. And I have been married for 16 years. I do have Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. And with that, I do have many limitations in both my lower extremities as well as my hands, my back.
Marley?
Hello, my name is Marley Sade. I'm 33 years old. I was born in Lebanon, but immigrated to the United States in 2000. So I've been here for a while. I am the Personal Care Assistance Program Coordinator for the CDE. So I am the coworker of Deb and Jamie. I have a T10, T12 spinal cord injury that I acquired in 2007. And my major in college was Modern Standard Arabic, and I also minored in women's gender and sexuality. And as my little profile thing says, I am definitely single.
Katie?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Shelley. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am 31 years old and I identify as a white female. I am a disability rights advocate for the Ability Center of Greater Toledo, which is a center for independent living serving the Metro Toledo area. I have cerebral palsy. I was born at 30 weeks, so I was premature, and as a result, I have cerebral palsy. My diagnosis is spastic quadriplegia, so the muscles in my legs, as well as in my arms and hands to a lesser extent, are spastic, so they do tend to tense up, which can make it difficult for me to move sometimes. I also do have balance issues. I am originally from the Metro Detroit area, but currently I'm living in Toledo, Ohio. I received my bachelor's degree from Western Michigan University in English literature. I have a Master of Library and Information Science from Wayne State University and a Master of Liberal Studies with a focus on disability studies from the University of Toledo. I am also single and I have a fur baby by the name of Petunia. She is my service dog and she is a black lab.
Hi, my name is Jamie Larmer. I am 30 years old. I am Hispanic. As I said, I'm the Youth Transition Coordinator with CDE. I also have cerebral palsy. I was born in El Paso, Texas. I'm currently living in Columbus, Ohio. Unlike my lovely partners tonight, I is smart. I'm just kidding. I am married to William, who is in the picture with me, and I'm a new fur mama to Declan. Claire?
Hi, I am Claire Peterman. I'm actually Deb Peterman's daughter. I'm 29 years old. My pronouns are she and her. I'm white. I'm a daycare worker. Been doing that on and off for a few years. Took a quite of a big gap, but I'm back at it now and it's nice to be back. I do have a processing disorder, so if you see me looking like I'm trying to grasp at words, you're not wrong. Born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. I studied integrated media at Ohio University, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. I am engaged to that handsome man in the picture. We are getting married in June. His name is Andrew. And I have 3 stepchildren with him, 2 boys, Adrian and Lucas, and a little girl named Verity. And then we have, as of 2 weeks ago, 4 cats, Coconut, Kiwi, Pepper, and Ro, who Ro is trying to get into the video right now. So they have the zoomies. So if you see them, I do apologize. But yeah, so that's me.
That's why I had to lock Declan out of here. Otherwise, I'd be having the same issue. Alina?
Hi, my name is Alina Redondo. I'm 28 years old. I'm Hispanic. I am the Youth Leadership Forum Coordinator here in El Paso, Texas, under CDIC, Children's Information and Disability Coalition. My diagnosis is focomelia, literally seal syndrome in Latin. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I have a master's social work degree from the University of Texas at El Paso. I am single, and I am a fur mama to a beautiful Neapolitan Mastiff named Duke.
And with that, I will stop screen sharing and turn things over to tonight's moderator, Deb.
Sorry, I should have been ready. I'm so excited about tonight. I think it's a great opportunity for these ladies to share, what they knew in the past and what they've learned up till now. And I have been blessed to know each one of these ladies. So tonight, we're going to be talking about different categories. There's some of the topics we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about advocacy, disability, independent living, intersectionality, and what that is, work, college, dating, loneliness, mental health, as well as self-image. All of these things are very important. They help us have a well-rounded life, a healthy life, and it's wonderful when we have friends that share that journey with us, whether they have disabilities or not. So let's get to it. All right, so my first question on advocacy. So I want to address this to the ladies. Advocacy, can you think of a time as a young person where you struggled to speak up for yourself?
I can start that question. So as a young person, and even now as an adult, I do, and it's somewhat ironic because my title at the Ability Center is Disability Rights Advocate. So I do advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. But when it comes to advocating for myself, it's been a lifelong struggle. I am definitely an introverted person, and I don't like to make waves, at least when it comes to myself. So I've always found it difficult to advocate for my needs, especially when I was in school, letting teachers know what I needed. A lot of times, like if I was doing group work in a class and all of the other kids got up to go to their groups and I'm sitting at my desk because I can't get up and move to join my group, I felt uncomfortable speaking up and saying, hi, I need, either you guys to come to me or, we need to create a solution to this. So that's something that I've definitely had to work on throughout my life. And I would like to think at 31 years old, I am definitely better at it than I was, when I was like 10 years old, but it's definitely still a struggle sometimes.
I think I can piggyback off of that and say, I think as of late, I have felt like I was a much stronger advocate yet being younger than I am now. I think, of course, I had insecurities as a kid. I I just wanted to be quote unquote normal and wanted to just blend in. And I hated that there was something about myself that made me stand out from everybody. And I, but even so, I still knew, okay, I need accommodations to get by, even if I didn't know the word at the time. I needed accommodations to get by, and I need to speak up. And so I was pretty vocal growing up with the things that I needed. But I think life kind of just gets in the way sometimes. And I guess, for lack of a better word, I've become a little more insecure about it and kind of self-doubting a little more frequently than I did when I was younger. I don't know if any of you all can relate. You're shaking your head, so yeah.
I think.
Yeah, definitely for me, I'm sorry, I'll piggyback off of that one. Definitely for me, growing up and being in school with a disability, it was really tough for me, especially because I didn't want to face the fact that I had a disability. So I walked really weird. I wouldn't use my AFOs. Sorry. I work in a school. I'm so sorry about that. But so for me, I didn't want to face the fact that I was disabled, and I didn't want to use my AFOs, my plastic leg braces, or anything like that. And so doing little things like, well, not really little, for me, even now, they're still really big for me. Going upstairs, things like that. I never asked for help. I never asked for elevator pass, or I would feel like I couldn't ask for help, or I couldn't ask for an elevator pass, or I didn't know who to ask for help from. So for me, those were some of the struggles that I had personally, was that I just didn't know who or where or how to get that help.
If I may kind of piggyback, kind of not piggyback off of that, I feel like, having had a processing disorder, people are very quick to, if you're not coming up with what you're trying to say right away, they'll just look at you like, spit it out, you know, and people aren't kind. This is nothing new. But it was, you know, it's one where it still affects me. And here I am going to be 30 next month, and I still have coworkers, bosses, random people at the drive-through for Starbucks acting like it is the biggest ordeal to have to wait for me to fully get what I'm trying to say out. And working in daycare, the kids are very quick to be like, Miss Claire, why can't you say that fast? What's going on? What's like, I actually had a kid call me stupid today. That was interesting. But with that, you know, that age group, it's like, you got to understand they're learning themselves. But it's one where, to this day, a lot of times I have to fight the urge to just implode and just try to be as small as possible. So
I'm gonna kind of hit up on everything that we have said. As a young kid, I was very confident, but then I went through a very traumatic experience with my parents' divorce. I was verbally and physically abused by my mother, and that completely changed me. I was very shy. I would use humor as a way to like cope when people were making fun of me. And I still do that at times. But definitely having to move from different school districts, not even lasting a year, was very scary. And difficult because I wasn't in special ed classes. So having a physical disability that someone can see and having to go into, you know, non-special ed classes, it was always like, well, how do we help you? And I sometimes they wouldn't even ask how they could help me. And I was so shy because I had such a huge fear that they would say, oh, you're stupid, or you don't belong here. Exactly the same things that my mom would tell me. That's the feeling and insecurity that I had, that professionals, teachers, students would repeat back to me. So I just stayed quiet and kind of like, oh yeah, that's fine. It wasn't until I moved for the 5th time to another school district when I was in 7th grade that, you know, they were like, no, she has to go into special ed because she is, how Claire said, stupid. She's just going to slow everybody down. And I was like, excuse me, I've been doing this for how long? And I'm pretty good in most of my grades except for math. So that's when I got the courage to finally speak up, because who else is going to listen to me if I don't tell them what I need?
I have a pretty similar upbringing. My family moved around at least 3 times before I turned 13. We moved to a couple of different countries too. So the culture was different, the language was different. I like to tell people that I don't know if I ever got a handle on any one social construct because there's so many of them going around in my head. And I was a pretty insecure, uncomfortable little girl. Similarly, I was abused. My mother was undiagnosed schizophrenic for most of our childhood. So my 2 brothers and I were alone with her for a very long time. So I think it's very important to also say that like self-advocacy could be as basic as calling the phone company and asking why there's $2 extra on your bill this month. It could be looking at the person that just cut you off in line and saying, excuse me, I was standing right here, or sitting right here, as some of us do. So it's hard. Being a self-advocate is hard. And a lot of us do the job that we do here because we want to help people learn to be self-advocates and have a voice and speak up for the things that we never were able to do for ourselves as younger ones. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty sure I've been an insecure little one more in my life than I have been a confident adult female. And I'm pretty sure I'm more confident now with my physical disability than before I was physically disabled too. So yeah, there's a lot to do when it comes to self-advocacy.
Before we move on to the next question, does anybody else want to add anything?
All right, so the next question also has to do with advocacy. Is there a time as an adult where you have struggled with advocacy?
Still to this day, guys, every single one of us will.
Yeah, I think those struggles are things that we're always going to have. And I think I can maybe speak for everybody in that, that, you know, I know for myself, I have definitely had those issues. Actually, just a few days ago, as you can tell, my office, you know, is a little hectic. And I'm a social worker, you know, so I do a lot of different things. I have a lot of different things going on. And I was in the middle of so many things, and I was in the middle of a group with 20-something students online, and I fell. And yeah, that was an issue, right? And so, you know, long story short, but, you know, at the end of the day, I had to speak up for myself, and I had to say something. I still have those issues though, where for the first 3 years of working here, people didn't know I was disabled. People thought I had arthritis in my hands. So yes, for me, yes, self-advocacy, even as an adult, is, you know, still an ongoing issue.
Does anybody else feel like sometimes you just pick your battles too when it comes to self-advocacy? Like, is this worth it for me right now in the moment? Is it worth the struggle?
Well, I think it's definitely, especially in the instances where you were talking about, where like, you know, advocating for yourself if somebody cuts in front of you in line, do you really at this point in time want to draw that attention to yourself and advocate for yourself? Or do you want to save it for something, do you want to save your energy for something bigger that you're going to have to advocate for later down the line?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it
reminded me. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but then I think it can also be a double-edged sword though, because then if you save your energy and don't advocate for yourself and you need to, then how are you ever going to advocate for yourself when it's beyond time to do so?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important, but it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Marley, you make me think of a really good point that you and Deb definitely helped me through not too long ago. I really struggled this past year, specifically this past summer. I was feeling very insecure, and just the weight of being cooped up 24/7 kind of took its toll on me. And I just was feeling like this huge whale that was ugly and hairy and just all sorts of negative thoughts going through my head. Therapy was not helping. It felt like an all-time low. And I tried to make myself feel better inside by fixing the outside. And I cut my hair, and I went from having it like waist length to having it like chin length. And I was super excited about it because I found this really cute haircut with lots of layers in it. And I had all these ideas that it was going to be great for summer. And I get there, and mind you, I am not one to spend a whole lot on stuff like that. So I typically go to like a Great Clips or something like that. And so this time I decided to go to a little bit of a fancier salon to treat myself, to see if that would help me feel a little better. And I go and I show the girl what I want, a picture of exactly what I want. And she's like, oh, that's so cute, whatever. And as she's cutting my hair, she's like, I'm actually going to do long layers because I don't want to freak you out. And I'm like, okay. I felt so insecure to even speak up in that moment that I just kind of went with it. And I walked out of there, and we were actually going to a party later that day, a small get together. And I had bought a new blouse. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to have my new hairstyle and this new blouse. I get home, hate my hair, but I'm like, okay, let me try on this blouse. It was a Junior's 3X, and it fit too tight. And I felt disgusting. And then I looked at my hair and I felt even more disgusting. And I broke down. And then I felt stupid for breaking down over hair and an outfit. And it culminated into this this feeling of just feeling unworthy of anything. And it took a lot of crying, a lot of therapy. I am now medicated and I'm feeling much better. But I mean, 30 years old and feeling insecure in ways that I have never felt before is a really scary feeling to me. And that's my 2 cents.
I know back when I was at a job, actually about this time last year, with COVID and all of the above, the way that they went about doing things significantly changed. So I had been at that point for nearly 2 years doing things one way. And suddenly that was all but gone. And I had to learn how to do more non-traditional avenues of this media advertising. And I remember going into the Excel documents and just it felt like I was reading hieroglyphs. Like there was no sense to any of it. And I tried and I asked for help. And I went out on a limb and even used Google to see if I could figure out what I should be doing. Nothing helped. Put it nicely, I had the powers that be were not interested in helping me. They were, in fact, more or less looking for reasons to say goodbye. I had meetings where words like incompetent were used, which, as you know, at the time I hadn't turned 29 yet. So as a 28-year-old, having been through higher education, having been through all of the downsides of having an invisible disability, where it's, you know, people don't know unless you go out of your way to tell them. And then even then they don't care. Not always, but a lot of people don't. It was just, it felt like there was no way out. Wasn't there much longer after that situation, but I just remember in that moment when I was pleading, you know, can we figure out a different way to figure this out? Like, can I maybe spend some time outside of work? I know, like, at the time I was salary, so I wouldn't have been paid for it, but I was wanting to take the time, and I think it seemed like I was too much of a liability because I wasn't getting it like that. So, you know, that whole run around the track 30 times to get to the point of, I feel like it's very easy to find yourself like the odd one out because you're trying so hard to plead and to express where the disconnect is, and because they don't understand, because they don't deal with it, it's a waste of time. And I think that killed my professional confidence quite a bit. It's still having to be repaired, but I think that lately I've been able to see that it's not necessarily me. That doesn't make it feel better a lot of the time, but, and I'm just talking, I'm rambling, sorry.
No, I agree with Claire. Sorry, Deb. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So for
Uh-oh, we lost her.
Oh no.
Hopefully she'll remember that thought.
Would someone else like to share?
I've talked for too long.
You know, when I was in college, when when I got into Ohio State University, I was really, really excited. And I did my first visit and I was so nervous. I didn't see anyone that looked like me. An Arab woman with a disability who was also overweight and very insecure. And I went through 3.5 years at Ohio State University with scholarships because I come from a low income family. And the people in my department actually called me a loser. They called me names. They were rude. The students, not the teachers, the students. But these are people that I've like, and it really, really threw me because I was a good student. Like in the department, I had one of the highest GPAs. So you would think that you would want to butter up to one of the highest students in the class. But for whatever reason, I was the odd one out. And it really bothered me that people thought I was a loser because I was on scholarships. I don't know why people, when they hear affirmative action, they get offended and they get like really angry and think that you do not belong. But getting the funding to get to college doesn't mean you're getting a free ride. You have to qualify for these scholarships and these programs. You have to submit applications. You have to maintain your GPA and your grades continuously every quarter. You cannot fail. But yet somehow I didn't belong with them because they were coming from wealthier and more privileged families than I was. But I mean, at the end of the day, I still had one of the highest grades in the class. So why did I have to care so much about what they were saying about me? Why was I putting my energy into people that didn't deserve me? Things could be said in the professional world, right, Claire? They obviously did not deserve you. So that was not the right place for you. Right. My older brother, he's 34, 35 years old, was on medication for his back recently, just last month. And the medications that he was on messed with his mind so badly that he had a manic episode at work. And ended up quitting. I guess the words "I quit" came out of his mouth. And then after he calmed down, he followed up with his employers, explained to them that he was on medications. Nothing that came out of his mouth was what he really felt or meant. Did they respond to him? No. Did they care that a human being, just had a manic episode? Did they care about their mental health, his mental health? No. And he called me, he was upset. He was really, really upset. And the best that I could do for him is tell him that they didn't deserve you. If they're not going to be sympathetic to mental health, which is something that everybody deals with, they're not a good organization to work for.
I just want
Thank
to
you, Marley. Go ahead, Alina. Now that we got you on there.
Pause, Alina.
I know. So, living in the middle of nowhere and being live, things happened. So advocacy, I've always struggled, even as an adult. It's a continuation of constant battle. I remember one time Jamie and I, one of our many mall adventures, I didn't want to get on the wheelchair. And I mean, obviously I can't walk long distance. And she was like, "You need a wheelchair." And I was like, "No, I don't." I mean, I did need one, but it was mostly my pride. So that's mostly what gets in my way is my pride. Again, it goes back to my trauma, wanting to prove to people that I can handle it and I can do it by myself. And sometimes it's just a matter of, stepping back and saying like, it's okay to ask for help. Another way that I struggle is also with authority. Sometimes, in the Hispanic culture, it's like you have to respect your elders no matter what. And usually, authority for me in my head, it just means someone older than me. They don't have to have a title necessarily. And just, speaking up to them and saying like, no, it has to be like this, this, and this. is sometimes intimidating for me. Like I really have to pick my battles of how I'm going to say it, because, you know, I have a short fuse and being respectful as well. And, you know, sometimes it just depends, because sometimes like I've said things and people just, it goes in one ear out the other, and I'm like, okay, well, that was just a waste of time. But it wasn't really a waste of time, because at least they know how I felt. If they didn't take it into consideration, at least I got it off my chest. And that's something that I constantly have to be reminding myself, that my voice matters. And if others don't agree or don't want to listen, at least it's out there in the world for someone to listen.
Wow. Those are great responses. So I'm going to move on. Let's talk about disability. So there's two questions, so let's combine them a little bit, okay? So please describe your disability. And if you were offered a pill that would take away your disability, would you take it? Why or why not? A loaded question.
I think it is. I'll start, I think. So I have a nerve and muscle disease. So with my disability, I have many limitations. The doctors always told my mom since I was young that I would be in a time I was 15. I would fall a lot. I have what's called drop foot. So where most people, their foot would pick up, mine drops like this. So I would drag my foot to walk. So for me, and that's without leg braces, for me, I would have dislocated knees. They dislocate like nobody's business. I actually pop them back in myself. Most people, when I tell them that, they're like, yeah, they do that. They're like, oh my God. But yeah, I'll pick up the patella and put it in place. And a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago already, my knee just got so bad that I actually did end up in a wheelchair for a few years. So that's, you know, my disability. It comes in different ways and it shows itself in different ways. My hands, obviously you can tell my hands as well. So part of it is also being in pain all the time. I am always in pain. And we actually talked about this question the other day when we were talking with just the panelists. And, you know, I thought I had my answer. Then I talked to my husband about it. And then he said, really, babe, like there's sometimes where you're crying in bed all the time because you're just in pain, you know. And I have different pains. I have the nerve pain because it's a nerve and muscle disease. I have the muscle pains, the nerve pains, the arthritis pains, the this pains, the that pains, the getting old pains, right? I have all these different pains. So, you know, I think a while ago, I probably would have said definitely yes. You know, like I would take it hands down, like that's it. But I think I'm at a place now in my life where I've come to accept my disability. I don't really think of it as holding me back as much as I used to. I think of it as pushing me forward. It is genetic. So my son has it, my niece has it, my siblings have it. And I think, you know, taking a magic pill would free me. It wouldn't free all of them. And I look at myself as, you know, I'm making the way for them. You know, like I will tell my niece, look, you need to look at these shoes, or you need to try these because that's what I use, or this is how I do something different. So for me, I think it molded me into the person that I am. Yes, taking those steps forward, I said that comment. So I think it kind of molded me into the person I am, that I am very proud of. But definitely, there are definitely some days where I'm like, oh my God, where is that magic pill? I remember I used to tell coworkers, imagine if we could just like trade our legs, you know, like just, you know, I'll have a new pair of legs today, you know, just, can I go to the leg store? I wish, right? But that's not a thing. So, you know, to answer your question, right now in my life, no, I wouldn't. But, you know, I definitely have the days that, yes, I would, hands down. No, but yes.
So I guess mine is pretty straightforward. It takes me a while to process information. This was very hard with school, especially stuff where you had to memorize dates. And My senior year, we had to memorize the book of James in the Bible. It's a short one, but it's still an entire book of the Bible. I'm just gonna leave that right there.
Sorry, Claire.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But a lot of times with the processing, I find that I don't learn stuff the way that other people do. For instance, I was in a documentary genres class, and one of the questions was who was on an exam was who was the first person to experiment with moving picture. So we're talking a long time ago. And I remember I had a moment during the exam where I knew exactly what the experiment was, what the experiment entailed, the process, whatever. And I could not for the life of me remember the guy's name. So I took the L on that one. But I did talk to the professor, and I was saying, I can't remember his name, but I remember that he set up several cameras and he had a horse run in front of them. And they were trying to prove that when a horse runs, the original thought was when a horse runs is that they have to have one leg on the ground at all times in order for them to do it. When they did that experimentation with the cameras, they had it like the cells of, a piece of film where it was like do, 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 do. And they were able to prove that it didn't. So I'm talking to my professor. Obviously, I didn't get the answer correct because I didn't know the guy's name, but he's looking at me. He's like, most people remember the dude and not the experiment. So a lot of it, I think like anybody else, it's what you're interested in, but it's also just, I pick weird little factoids and hook onto that. And that's how I learn. And I think that's why film and whatnot does work so well for me, because a lot of times it's very unusual, sometimes a little weird. I know there are times mom and dad look at me like, what are you talking about? But it's, it's the way that I process. You can't just say to me, this and this and this is because blah, 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 blah. Like there's a whole system that has to go with it. So that being said, would I take a pill? I think, yeah, I think it would depend on the day, but, and my current state of feeling. But I've had a lot of really fun, silly memories with friends, based on the way I process things. I get together with two of my college friends once a month. We have a little social distance lunch together and we just talk about life and whatnot. And I remember the other day I was trying to say something and it was just like complete shutdown. Like I could not remember what I was going to say. And I just remember them saying, oh, we lost her. She's rebooting, And there are only a few people that can say that. And I don't feel like they hate on me, whatever. But stuff like that, it's who I am. Like, I'm that weirdo that remembers the experiment and not the scientist or whatever. I'm the person that over simple subjects will just have a moment of literal robotic. it's who I am. So overall, I would say no as well.
I think I said when we were doing the practice session that I don't know. And honestly, I still don't know, because most of us with spinal cord injuries will tell you that if it wasn't for the bladder, bowel, and sexual dysfunction, we would be perfectly fine not using our legs to walk. But those three things have not gone any, like, there isn't much improvement scientifically and medically speaking in those areas. There's a lot of skin difficulties that I have to deal with as well. And honestly, when you're in a wheelchair, it signals for people to think that you need to be spoken to as a child and need to be protected and babied, and it's just weird. So I don't always know if I'm going to say yes to this question. I would go back and change things. But also, who's to say that if things wouldn't have gone in a completely different direction than I am imagining them, right? I'm sure there can't possibly be those just two choices. There's so many different ways life can take us. I think I really don't know if I would take the pill or not.
I agree, and I echo everything pretty much everyone has said so far. I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and I really do think that my disability has shaped who I am today as a person. And it's taken me a long time to get there, but I've come to realize that my disability isn't something that needs to be fixed. I think especially growing up and being, especially in my immediate family, one of the only people that anybody knew who had a physical disability, there was this thought that I needed to be fixed or I needed to be cured and I needed to walk one day independently. I could still walk with a walker. I was walking, but there was this prevailing thought that Katie needs to walk independently one day. And that's probably never going to happen, especially with my balance issues. It's very hard for me to walk with a walker sometimes, let alone to try to walk without any assistance at all. But it took me a long time to get there and realize that that's okay. I'm still who I am. And even if I'm not fixed, my disability has shaped who I am and will continue to shape who I am. And if it were miraculously cured, I don't know if I would be the same person, but I think in a way I would be the same person, but in a way I feel like I would be losing a part of me at this point, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, absolutely, I would not take the pill, but so there's a few things I think about. So I agree with Vero in that I got the aches, the pains, I've had nerve pain for quite a while, but it took me meeting Marley to learn that it was nerve pain.
Mm-hmm.
It was pain in general until she told me, no, that burning feeling you're feeling on the side of your thigh, that's nerve pain. And yeah, didn't know that. So thanks. But my disability, as much as I have those days where I'm insecure, where now that I have a walker again, after having not used one in probably 20 years and having a scooter now and being insecure about using those sometimes, even given that, there is so much good wrapped up in my disability that I just, I can't see life without it. I mean, I wouldn't be in my dream job if I didn't have my disability. I wouldn't have met the amazing man that I did if I didn't have my disability and had filtered through all the frogs. Had to censor myself a little bit. And it really helped me identify who was truly there for me. And there's so much good wrapped up in it that it's hard for me to weigh that against the daily aches and pains and all that stuff, and the arthritis and the nerve pain and the 80-year-old body, even though I'm 30. But yeah, that's my point.
So like I said, my disability is phocomelia. So I mean, obviously we're in a screen, so I don't have upper limbs and my lower limbs are not fully developed. I don't have a kneecap or a growth bone. So I'm short, fun size. So everything, you know, now that I've gotten older, obviously we carry our weight in our knees. And now, since I've gained a little bit of weight, I carry everything on my hips. So I am starting to feel like the back pain and fatigue, and I can't do certain moves that I could because I use my feet as my hands. And now if I want to grab something, I'm like, oh my God, in order to like bend down to get it with my feet, like, oh no, it's too much. But I wouldn't take the pill just because, you know, all of the things that I went through, I would have been a different person. I don't think I would have been as humble and thankful. I wouldn't have met all the people I've met, the students that I work with, my amazing friends, and my disability works as a filter. You know, if you don't like me or you don't accept me, that's not my problem. That's your problem. I could say, yes, I wish everything was shorter. And yes, I wish I could grab this cup of water without having to climb the chair. But honestly, I like it when someone tells me no, and then I do it. And then I'm like, ha ha ha. Yes. I love that feeling. Or when people are like, oh, she can't do it, poor her, da da da. And I'm like, watch. I kind of feel like Hannah Montana, and I'm kind of aging myself, where I feel like I have the best of both worlds. Because people who understand and are involved in the disability community, they know what we are capable of, that we are our own limitation. But the other part, it's like, oh, we can't do that. We have to be talked down to and this and that. And it's like, no, I just do it different. And I think it's such a beautiful way of viewing life, that I don't think if I had the disability, I would see it that way. I wouldn't be paying attention into the details of if I want to walk from here to there to get water, what are the necessary steps I have to take? But I mean, part of me would want to have hands and maybe be a little bit taller, but just maybe for a day, maybe the day that I would have like a child, so I can hug that child. But I mean, now people who are able to hug their children don't even want to hold their children or hug them. Like now they sell like that wrapping blanket so their hands could be free. So I'm like, if you can do it, like, why not do it, you know? So I don't know. That's what I would do.
Very serious question for you, Alina.
Go ahead.
Can we tape grabbers to you? Then you can have them.
I think I would be dangerous because I would want to punch people like, whoop, whoop. Sorry. Maybe not the smartest idea with my tendencies.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to answer that? All right, so now we're going to talk about independent living. So, you know, what sort of things did you do as a young person to develop your independent living skills? Do you currently live on your own? And what is the scariest thing about being an adult? Ask any millennial, they don't want to adult.
I think for me, yeah, I don't want to adult. I actually have a shirt that says "Done adulting for today," so I love that shirt. But so yes, I do live on my own, well, kind of on my own. I have a family. I have a husband and a son. So I have been living on my own for many years, actually, since I was 17, 18. I have been living on my own. Things that I have done when I was younger to kind of get me ready for it. Honestly, I think for me, like it was more the budgeting, you know, things like that. As for my disability, it's weird because I had a kid ask me this one time too, because they were watching me write, and I write different. And I remember when I was a kid, I didn't even realize I wrote different. And I write like this. I literally grab the whole pen or pencil with my whole hand. I will grab it like this because I don't have the function to hold it like everybody else does. So they asked me, Miss, you write differently. Like, how? Why? How did you learn that? And I was like, you know what? It's just when you grow up with a disability, you learn how to do things different. So it's not necessarily like, oh, on December 2nd, 1990, whatever, I learned this. That's not what it was. So for me, living on my own, it was exactly that. It was just kind of learning how to do things gradual, like moving into a place that didn't have stairs, moving into a place that didn't have, you know, a high, what do you call it, to get in the house, you know, like a stair, any stairs of any kind, that, you know, that had a bigger restroom. My restroom is huge because I need that space for my chair when I'm at home. You know, my the hallways in my house, they're wide hallways. When we moved into the home that I'm in, that was the first thing we saw. That was the first thing that my husband said, actually. It wasn't even me. My husband's like, hey, look at the hallways. They're really wide. Your chair will fit perfect. You know, it's just knowing what you need and how you need it. I think that's the number one advice I can give to any young adult that has a disability is what you need. Because like for me, when I get home, as you guys saw, I just stood up right now. I do walk now. I did have a surgery. I know I talked a little bit about me being in a wheelchair. I did have a miracle surgery, and not that miracle. I used to have accidents, but I do walk. But the thing is that I wear leg braces to walk. If I don't have them on, I cannot walk. Like it's not going to happen. So at my house, I don't want to wear my leg braces. So I use a wheelchair. So I need to have wide hallways. I need to have a wide door frame. I need to have, you know, things in that nature. So yeah, adopting is hard. I don't choose to do it. So it just happened. Thank you.
I'm looking still for that manual on how to adult because sometimes I don't feel like an adult. And I can smell my 30s and it's scary. But as a young person, I think what really helped me to learn about independent living skills is my dad was really harsh on me. Not cruel and not, you know, malicious, but mostly like trying to push me out of my comfort zone. My grandma and my grandpa and my tios, my uncles, everybody else would just hand me things like, oh, poor her. No, I feel bad for her. Here. And my dad would be like, no, you want to get that? Go get it. And I remember I fell multiple times. I lost all my baby teeth. I remember going on trips and, you know, I didn't have like that strength in my legs as I do now. So the certain floors like tiles, I would slip and whoop, there goes another tooth. Let's just say I was a rich kid from all the connections I had with the tooth fairy. So that really helped me in knowing like what I can and can't do and where my limitations are. And when I started being part of the YLF, you know, learning about my rights as a person with a disability really helped me, you know, learn what I can do. Just how Beto said, you know, the ADA, where can I ask for to have my house modified, my vehicle modified, and you know, that there is modifications. You know, my disability is so rare that I don't have another person to look to and say, oh, there's like a society like the Autism Society or, you know, Down syndrome society that I can just ask and be like, oh, hey, what do you use? So mine is a constant learning process. I kind of grab from people who have amputees, people who are little people, and kind of like fit into pieces like, oh, okay, maybe I can use this. Um, and now with assistive technology growing, like that's amazing for me because now, you know, my Alexa, I'll call her Echo, because she's literally right next to me. She has helped me a lot. I don't live on my own. I do live with my father, but I do own a house. I am a homeowner. And the scariest thing about adulting is mainly driving. I don't know why, just like having to go to the store and just feeling so tiny because obviously the world is not built for me. Having to like go out from work and walking, you know, to my car and getting mugged. Like that's my biggest fear. I'm sure if I were to get mugged or get kidnapped or adult nap, they would get so annoyed and be like, be quiet and just leave me there. But still, it's so scary because I'm such an easy target and there's no way that I can defend myself. Like, yeah, I can scream, but you know. So that's my biggest thing. And maybe paying bills. I don't like paying bills.
So I had a pretty interesting development as a growing up with my family. I figured out how to pay bills and write checks before I was even 15, 16 years old. I was paying, helping my dad fill out all of our immigration paperwork, any kind of medical things that he needed, I was helping with. My little brother, who's 6 years younger than me, this is pretty interesting. He would come to me and ask for of me, like he'll go ask dad, can I go to the movies with my friend? Go ask Marley. So now it's Marley's decision whether or not her little brother gets to go out or not. I have to ask, where are you going? Who are you going to be with? Who are the adults involved? What house are you going to be at? Like all of those adult mommy things that we do. But also, when I got hurt, it was really interesting because I was not a citizen yet, so I didn't qualify for any benefits. I didn't qualify for any services, and that was a pretty scary time in my life. Again, we are low income, a manual wheelchair, which is cheaper than a power wheelchair, guys, is still like $6,000 depending on the provider and what you get approved for and the level of your injury too. So everything was donated to me, and the idea of getting out of the home felt like an impossibility. And because I had this weird dynamic where I was an adult in the sense where I was taking care of people, but I wasn't an adult in the sense was allowed to make my own decisions. I still had to ask permission before I turned 18 if I was allowed to go to the movies. Most of the time it was a no. But like when the injury happened, I felt like I was shackled by this disability because my independence, my future of getting out of from under that Lebanese Arab mentality that we all grew up with, even though we're 20 years deep in the United States of America. It was hard. It was really weird. I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to do things. And OSU, when I first moved to OSU in 2015, that was my big decision after my injury. 10 years later, that was the big decision for me. That was my way out of my father's home and into a future. Right? So that was a little scary, but I figured things out. And one of the things that I've learned is that I'm pretty capable. And we all, I think, are more capable than we realize. We have just never experienced this specific situation before, so we're scared until we do it. And then we realize it wasn't that scary. And then we can do better and more of the different things. But like you, it takes me about a minute to break down my wheelchair and get into my car. And I'm always fearful within that 1 minute what someone's gonna do. But that's why I got into an apartment with parking garage and security on. So that was my way of solving certain issues that I couldn't do on my own. Yeah.
Anybody else? Want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah.
All right. So which one do you want to do, girls? College, family, dating, and sex, loneliness, and mental health. What should we do next?
I think I saw a dating question, so we could
Okay.
Yeah, let's touch on dating.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Can you see the dating question? I'm not sure I see it.
Oh, it was.
Let's go ahead.
I was curious about how to navigate dating with a disability.
Okay.
So,
All right. So
cover that and our questions that we have.
Okay. So on dating, here we go. Positive dating experiences, negative. Did or does your disability affect your dating life? How so? And how soon do you disclose your disability when you're talking to someone?
So I haven't dated in a very long time, but when I did, I will share those experiences. I have been with my husband since I was 18, so it's been a long time, but right? But for me, honestly, when I was a teenager, and I know some of this is geared towards the teenagers, when I was a teenager, and it was before I would wear my leg braces, so I remember meeting guys, in different areas, and I was always sitting down when they approached me. The minute I got up and they saw the way that I walked, they never called me. And that does something to you, I remember I'd be like, yeah, he's never gonna call me. Yeah, it's all right. And then I remember as I grew older and I started wearing my leg braces, and it was a lot harder for people to tell that I was disabled when I would wear them. And I remember I started dating this guy. I would kind of talk to different guys, but I didn't really know how to go about it because I didn't have anybody to ask to say, hey, how was dating? Like, was it a negative or positive? All the questions you just asked me, I didn't have anybody to ask that to. And it was a very difficult thing for me. For me, it was very, very difficult. And I remember dating this guy, and I was talking to him for a little bit, and my mom was like, you need to tell him that you're disabled because you're lying to him. And, pretty much you're kind of like lying to him because he needs to know. And I was like, okay. And I remember telling him, I did tell him. He seemed like so great about it, so supportive. I was like, oh my God, I got a winner. In my brain, I was like, I got a winner. He's cool with this. And yeah, he never called me again. And he talked very, very bad about me to mutual friends. And I was heartbroken. I was like, he didn't even have the, try not to cuss, the audacity to break up with me. He just, you know what I was gonna say. But he didn't have, he couldn't even break up with me or anything, or even talk to me. He just, talked about me. And not only did he do that, but he also told everybody that didn't know I was disabled that I was disabled. So it just kind of threw me out there. That I was like, hey, by the way, she has a disability. At the time, I felt like it was the worst thing. Obviously, I was a teenager. It's the worst thing that anybody could have ever done to me. And a lot of people were actually really cool about it and really, really nice about it. That's how you figure out who your true friends are. And then I met my husband. And when I met my husband, it took me quite a while. We dated for, I want to say 6 or 7 months before I even mentioned anything. A few times, like I stumbled and he'd be like, are you okay? And I remember one time I even told him, oh, it's because I hurt my foot. Or one time he mentioned my hands and I told him, oh, it's because I have arthritis in my hands. I never told him like, oh, I have a genetic disease. This is what it is, blah, 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 blah. And again, my mom was in my ear, and she was like, you need to say something, it's important because it's not fair to him that he's falling in love with you, or maybe you don't know, and he's establishing a relationship with you, and you're not being your complete self. You're not being truthful to who you are. So I did. And I remember the night that I told him, I don't remember the day, but I remember the night that I told him, I remember telling him, you know what, I have something to tell you. I'm disabled. This is what it is. I told him all about it. And it blasted him a little bit, but he cried. And he's like, I'm sorry. And then I thought, oh, that's it. He's gone, right? And I was like, you know what? It's completely cool if you gotta leave, because you know what? You're not the first one. You won't be the last. It's all good. And he's like, no, I mean, I'm sorry that something so awful happened to such an amazing person. And I was just like, wait a second, where did you come from? And so I remember the next day when he called, I was like, wait, he called. I told my mom, look, he called. Do I call him back? And she's like, yes, Mensa, call him. And I did. And he has never treated me, like I was different. Sometimes, I fall or whatever, and I'm so used to being so independent where I'm like, I could do it. I could put my knee in, give me 10 seconds because it kind of hurts a little. And he's like, oh my God, let me help you. Like, he wants to help me, and to answer your question, dating was very, very tough. I've had a lot of negative output, but I think at the end of the day, it is very important to tell them, especially if you have a disability like mine, where you can't necessarily see it right away, or they don't necessarily notice it right away. Sometimes, like I said, people don't exactly know right away. And we have to be honest, and there's good ones out there, okay?
If I may chime in, I don't have a whole lot of dating experience as a teenager. I had one boyfriend in high school. Most of my dating experience happened after I turned 20. I did online dating on and off for three years. And it was really interesting. And I don't mean that nicely at all. So I struggled in those 3 years of, should I put my disability on my profile? Should I just be upfront about it and say something? Or should I just wait till I'm talking to the person? And I did both. In those 3 years, I did both. Because one, I would get people who were put off by it, and they would just completely ghost me. But my biggest one, and probably more traumatizing than just ghosting me, is I would get those that would fetishize it. And I'm an open book, so I will try to keep this as PG as I can.
They're called devotees.
But I would get a lot of questions of, can you still have intercourse? And, oh, I've never had intercourse with someone with a disability. And on top of online dating, so this is going to get real personal here, guys, whatever, we're all friends. On top of online dating and having a disability, I was also a virgin. So that fetishized me even more, because it was like, it was either, again, they would be off-put, or it was, oh, let me have that. And neither of which I wanted. No. And it just really put me off, made me very cynical. I thought all men are trash. And I mean, which most of them are. Just kidding. But I remember the last year that I was on there, I finally thought, okay, this is it. I've had too many people messaging me, just vulgar, disgusting things. I don't want any part of it. I'm done. And the day that I was going to close my account for good, my now husband messaged me. And he messaged me, I wish I could remember what he said, but I remember it being something funny. Instead of being barraged by all these dirty messages, having something funny was a breath of fresh air. And it was just so nice to talk to him. And mind you, he took terrible pictures because I was not attracted to him by his pictures. I thought, okay, he's a really sweet guy. I'll talk to him, whatever. And we ended up going out on a date. He finally convinced me after, I think, 3 weeks of talking to go out on a date with him. And I get in his car and I look at him, and my first thought was, darn, he takes really terrible pictures because this man is fine. And long story short, it was a great first date. And in dating him, one story that stands out is we were in El Paso. There is a military base, and there's a movie theater on that military base, and we would frequent it. And we were going from dinner to a movie, and we were actually running late to the movie. Now, my husband is a movie aficionado. That's a nice way of saying it. And he is very strict about his movies, and he has to be there before it starts because he doesn't want to interrupt people. And you better not be on your phone in the movie theater. It's a whole thing. We still have issues 7 years later. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so we're trying to get to this movie, and my disability, I don't use any sort of mobility, well, didn't use any sort of mobility aids, didn't use a wheelchair, but I can't walk long distances because I get really tired. So I tend to take breaks pretty frequently if I'm walking a long distance. And I had to slow down and take a break as we're quite literally running to the movie theater. And he's like, no, you can't take a break. We gotta go. We're gonna be late. And I'm like, Will, I need to take a break. And he was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot. This man, this beautiful man, forgot I had a disability and was just so in his head about missing the movie. He forgot I had a disability and forgot that I needed to take frequent breaks. And that's just a thing with him. He, to this day, stuff like that happens because he doesn't see me as Jamie, the woman with CP. He sees me as Jamie, his wife, Jamie, his partner, whatever. He doesn't see the disability. And I really appreciate that about him.
So if I may, I will go next. So I have been in love with the idea of like love and falling in love ever since I was little, probably in preschool. I mean, I remember like having crushes on boys in kindergarten. And, you know, I throughout school, but I never really dated. And it was very difficult for me, you know, being kind of shy, being kind of introverted. And also my disability was very much visible. And, you know, I had some body image issues when I was in school as well. So, you know, all of that combined, and never really dated when I was in school. And even when I was in undergrad, I didn't really go on my first official date until I was in grad school. And even then, I haven't really dated that much and have never really, unfortunately, been in any long-term relationships. I like Jamie, I have tried online dating, and it is a struggle to, you know, try to decide whether or not to disclose your disability. But then I feel like if I'm not going to disclose my disability, I'm being disingenuous. But then when I disclose it, either people won't message me, or like Jamie said, you get the devotees, the, you know, people who are fetishizing your disability, or, you know, people that, you know, want to ask questions or feel sorry for you, but don't really want to date you. And so it's just been a struggle. And lately I have just given up on online dating, period, because honestly, I don't want to devote the time and effort to it. If nothing's going to happen, I'd much rather work on myself and loving myself right now. But it's something that I definitely, you know, I want a relationship with someone. I would like a long-term relationship, get married. I would love to have kids one day, but I want it to happen. You know, it's like, I want to find the right person. And right now that's unfortunately just not happening. And I know that that doesn't really answer the question, but I just feel like for me, I think it's important to disclose your disability because, you need to be true to who you are. And for me, my disability is definitely a huge part of who I am, but it has made finding someone very difficult.
So just like Katie, I haven't had a lot of dating experience. I don't think I've ever been in a relationship. I've gone out on a few dates. I know that in 8th grade, I had this huge crush on this little boy, and he completely outed me in front of everyone. He was like, I don't want to sit next to her because she could be contagious. And I was like,
Rude.
Okay, if your hands fall, I'm gonna just take them and take them to the hand shop. Just kidding. So yeah, I was really discouraged from there. And then, in high school, I was just dedicated and graduating early because I really wanted to be an attorney. So that was just my main focus. But after I graduated and started college, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could try like this dating thing. And I took Jamie's advice and started online dating. And, a lot of people were really nice. And of course, there was some devotees out there. And, I obviously don't have the luxury of just saying like, oh, I can hide my disability. It's there. It's a huge thing. And I just want to know, are you willing to assist? You don't have to. I do plan on having a provider, but there will be times obviously when I will need your assistance. And of course, a lot of people are just like, no, too much. I had one person say, is your thing genetic? Because I don't want my child to have that disability. And I was like, I don't know. But I don't want to have your children, so bye. So yes, there has been some negative, definitely. People right away go into like sexual comments, and I'm like, I don't really want that. It wasn't until recently, a year ago, yesterday, that I met someone who has really changed my perspective in dating. He is very kind. He hasn't really said any sexual comments, and it has given me hope that there are good people that are understanding and are willing to learn about your disability. He doesn't have a disability, but he is so patient, even with my traumas and my nerdy, geeky likings. He still is very patient and understanding. So I'm going to say yes, I'm going to be the cheesy person, adult, who says, your time will come. Don't rush it. What is meant for you will simply love you and appreciate you the way you are. You don't have to fight for it. You don't have to say, oh, I have to change in order for this person. If you have to change for anybody or hide who you are, then that person isn't for you.
I agree. Well, I'm similar to everybody else in the sense that I don't have that much experience. Again, growing up in the Lebanese culture, I wasn't really allowed to date, and we didn't really do that anyway. And growing up, I never really was allowed to date. And then I had my injury when I was 20 years old. So for those of you who have a spinal cord injury, maybe with us, you know that it could be years of recovery just to feel like a person again. There's a lot behind that goes around. I am loud and obnoxious. I don't care in the sense that to hide my disability. I don't. It can't be hidden because wheelchair user, and honestly, weirdly enough, on those dating apps or whatever, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the time these guys are just swiping to see a beautiful body or a beautiful face. I can't tell you how many times, even though my profile picture clearly shows me sitting in a wheelchair, where I got into a conversation with a guy who didn't seem to recognize that there's a disability. So they didn't actually genuinely look at my pictures fully, nor did they read my profile fully either. So I didn't talk to them. And then you have the devotees, those that like to fetishize your disability. That's what they're called in the disability community, because they want to weigh on you hand and foot. They like the way you are because they like that you depend on them. Again, devotee. And I'm not one of those. It's really hard for me to talk to a person who is of the devotee community, because you're fetishizing metal and rubber, which is weird to me. So I tend, like the rest of them, I'm not interested in dating profiles. I would rather just live and develop, grow as a person, as a woman, learn who I am as a human being, because it really is hard for us to be just who we are in this world right now. And so just take care of you, honestly. If the person that deserves you is going to come around, then they'll deserve you. And if they don't, then you're working on who you are and you're bettering yourself. That whole self, that independence thing and self-advocacy thing. And it's a beautiful, like, you can, just stay true.
I honestly think that men are afraid of strong women, period.
Oh, yeah.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and open up Q&A. Did someone else want to make a comment first? Okay. So the first question actually goes along with what you guys were just talking about. Ashley was saying, how would you disclose your disabilities on your dating profile?
Again, it was pretty easy to disclose because of the photos.
There was a time there where I was real angry, and I was getting a lot of those people who would stop talking to me just because I have a disability. So at one point I had it in big letters on my profile. I have a disability, take it or leave it. If you're gonna leave it, don't even bother messaging me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that too. You know, I try not to get into like the specifics of my diagnosis and all of that, because like, honestly, if they really care, then they can talk to me about it. But I will let them know, like, hey, I have a disability. I use a wheelchair most of the time. If that bothers you, then don't even bother. And most of them don't. And therein lies some of the problem with that. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to talk to them anyway. But yeah, so again, I don't like disclose like detailed specifics about my disability, but I do disclose the fact that I have a disability, because sometimes, especially with pictures, for me, I'm a big selfie taker. I like taking selfies, and so sometimes it's just the face and they're not seeing like full body pictures, and especially because sometimes I have some body image issues, so I would rather them just see my face, so they might not know by the picture that I am a person with a disability. But you know, I try to make that clear in the profile should they choose to read it.
I use photos, obviously, full body pic, me in a wheelchair, then my close-up of my gorgeous face. And then in the bio, I just make a joke out of it, like, yes, I have a disability, yes, I don't have hands, and you know, something like funny, because of course humor is like my go-to. But that's how I disclose.
All right, so I want to open this up for people who are listening for questions. You can unmute yourself, and we didn't get to cover everything, ladies, so I think we're probably gonna have to do another one. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I was just thinking we should do a part 2.
Yeah.
For those of you that are asking questions about dating and disabilities, and I want to really put this out there for all of you. If you're feeling rejected, flip it around. It's not a rejection. They are genuinely saving you from heartache, frustrations, hostilities that you do not want to live with in your day-to-day lives. So they're kind of doing you a favor.
Yeah.
If they're not the right, yeah, I mean, they're kind of doing you a favor.
It took me a long time to realize that all those rejections and all those ghostings were a favor. I had so many where, let's say I found a cute guy. Actually, one of the days I was supposed to meet Will, because he asked me out 3 different times before I actually said yes. And the second time he asked me, I was going to a concert at the military base, and he asked if he could meet me there. And I told him no, but I told him no because I was meeting someone else. And and so I was really excited to meet this guy. He was really cute. I think he was a little younger than me, like a year or so. And he just had an amazing body. And he stood me up. He never responded to any of my messages that night. He didn't show up. And I missed out on this, having a great time with this great guy, all because I thought there was someone better. He wasn't that great. He was a douche.
I think we have a question.
Yes, we do. If you could go back and tell one thing to your teachers, just one thing, what would it be? The teacher, asking myself as a teacher. Wait, I didn't say that. She said asking as a teacher myself. Yeah.
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 Go ahead.
I promise I'm trying. I'm not just being a smart aleck. I'm not sitting here looking at you this way because I'm being disrespectful. I am genuinely trying to figure out how everything you said is connected.
I would say don't focus on what I can't do, but what I could do. Because if we keep focusing on what I can't, that's just going to make me feel incompetent and hurt my self-esteem.
Yeah, I was going to say almost the same thing as Alina, which is I am not my disability. And yeah, don't focus on what I can't do. I know for me, having a physical disability, and I was put into special ed classes, and then I was taken out of special ed classes, and they didn't know what to do with me because I was fine. You know, I just physically wasn't so great. So yeah, don't focus on disability and focus on what we can do. So yes, definitely piggyback off of Alina.
Same here. I had even non-teachers just in my life in general. So many people assume because I have a physical disability, I also have an intellectual one. And so I would get talked down to a lot. And so again, not focusing on that disability or the things we can't do, or I guess, for example, I would get told, oh, you can't lift that heavy thing. Oh, let me get that for you. It's okay. It's okay. And just, again, talking down. So yeah, focusing on the person's strengths rather than their difficulties.
Also, watch what you say, because I had a teacher say, oh, if you were normal, quote unquote, you would be so hot. And it's like, what? That, first of all, that's not even appropriate
to say.
Exactly. So watch what you say. Be mindful.
So go ahead, Katie.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Marley. You're fine.
I was going to say, if you have a student with any kind of mobility devices where they kind of have to sit to the side and not be included in the general classroom setting, to watch out for them. If a lot of the times they're going to be raising their hands and you're not looking at them, you're not paying attention to them, you actually forgot that they even were sitting over there in their own little corner by themselves. So make sure that you're including them in class participation. Instead of making them feel like Katie mentioned with activities, ask the group that you're part of to migrate over to where Katie and Marley are sitting. If you're like in college specifically, and I had to do this quite a bit, is like remind the teachers that I was in the classroom, and if I'm going to get participation points, they need to actually include me in the participation aspect of the class. A lot of times it was just, oh, also, do not leave desks and chairs in front of doorways. This happened to me where a group of 5 or 6 people even entered the classroom, and I'm looking in and I can see them sitting there and laughing, but no one thought to move a desk and a chair from the doorway. So yeah, pay attention to the environment of the classroom as well as everything else the ladies have been talking about too.
Yeah, and Marley, you basically echoed what I was going to say, so I don't have anything else to add.
Really quick, ladies, I have everybody's email on a slide. Do you all care to share your contact information if anybody wants to follow up with you one-on-one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I will go ahead and share my screen. Sure.
Okay, I have come with that question, you guys. Okay. Just lately, I've been thinking about the people we serve, and you know, I have a heart for teenagers. Like when you guys were teenagers, where there was lack of social stuff that happened after school, besides Special Olympics. It was just not that, those opportunities. And what I feel like sometimes is lack of social opportunities. I wonder, did it ever make you feel less mature than your peer because you didn't have that practice? You know, I really feel like if we could find a way to help teens connect, even at a community center, and the focus is not on school, but it might be on learning more IT tech, or maybe elderly people run stuff and maybe they want to do crocheting, I don't know. But having a mixture of people, different ages, because you know, the big thing is we all lose our friends when we graduate from high school. And so once you make that graduation, I mean, all of us, whether we have disabilities or not, but even more so because school helps create those opportunities where you could socialize, but not necessarily with your peer. So those are some things that have been churning in my head. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I work in a school, as you all know. And myself as a teenager, you know, I did have that issue, you know, of, you know, the more of just feeling left out. I don't want to say lack of socialization because I was very social. I would take off with my friends and walk on broken ankles and just to keep up with them, you know. So I wouldn't necessarily join any clubs or anything because obviously they weren't very inclusive in that, because, you know, I couldn't exactly do them. But yeah, so I definitely think, you know, so socialization at this age is so very important. I myself, I work with kids. I work in a middle school, and all I do is socialize with them. Sometimes during the days, you know. Right now, actually, they're listening to me talk to you guys. They're like, "Miss, can we hear you?" And I'm like, "Sure." You know, we'll watch movies together. We'll talk about things. I have told them all about my disability. And some of them had told me, "Oh, my sister or my cousin or my neighbor or my whatever, or Miss, this is what's going on with me." I think having somebody that they can confide in, that they can talk to, and that they can relate to is so, so very important. And then they have each other as well. And they see that, you know, like I told you guys earlier, I fell the other day. And when I fell, my kids were on my computer. So they all watched it happen. And instead of laughing, you know, they, because I was expecting for that to happen because they're kids, you know, and they didn't. Except, you know, they didn't realize I couldn't see the chat box from the floor. But when I got up off the floor, they asked me, Miss, are you okay? You know, and I looked, I was like, guys, I'm fine. I'm okay, you know, and explaining it to them. And just, they have this empathy that some of them, I think if I didn't explain it to them and I didn't, you know, allow them, you know, to be in that bubble with me, you know, I kind of burst the bubble because it's not really a bubble anymore. I burst it and I told them, look, I'm disabled. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, even one of my kids the other day, I heard her arguing in the hallway with somebody, which wasn't a good thing, but I told her, you shouldn't be doing that. But somebody called somebody else crippled. And she's like, Miss Gallego said you don't use that word, you know, and just having that conversation with them. So, sorry, I kind of went off tangent there, but socialization, yes, so very, very important, but it's the manner in which we do it as well.
So what I find interesting also is there's a separation among people with disabilities. Marley talks about it with quads don't relate to people who are I can't remember how she said it, or people who are manual chair wheelchair or paraplegics. You know, you're not the same as us, and so there's almost inside the disability community that segregation and so what I find, and I know, you know, Jamie and Marty, we've talked about this, but you know, we have youth chat on Friday night. We do this twice a month.
She froze.
What?
Oh. Who froze?
What happened? Oh.
Now you guys frozen, apparently.
So, you know, we can provide those opportunities for youth chat, especially during pandemic. You know, who knows what's going to work. But, you know, how do we connect with the youth when they're at that tender age of recognizing, you know, I like boys or I like girls or, you know, body image and all that kind of thing. You know, we didn't talk about the body image, so we're probably going to have to do a part 2. But I'm just curious, you know, how we can come alongside the teen. I want to just say the word, to bless them, to bless who they are, and to help them to fly. Any thoughts on that?
If I may, I think things like this are a good way. But I think it's so hard because people don't talk. And so getting teenagers to talk about their feelings is really tough. And then you have adults who also have insecurities, and that's really tough. But I think presenting the opportunities for spaces like this, safe spaces, and just having them available would be a good way to start. But I know it's gonna be an uphill battle, just because being vulnerable is not easy. I mean, it's easy for us because we've gotten to know each other, and some of us are pretty comfortable with telling our life stories in public speaking situations. But especially as a teenager, telling your life story to someone is terrifying. And so I think we need to recognize that that's going to be a tough thing. But for youth out there, there are people who've been through what you're going through, as you can see clearly by these lovely millennials with our side parts and our skinny jeans. But
except for me.
Okay, boomer.
Watch it. That's my mom.
Oh. she's my adopted mom. But I think we need to find a way to bridge the generation gap. And I don't know. I don't know where I was going with any of that.
We also need, I mean, but like Deb said, I do think that there is definitely a disconnect within the disability community, and I've fallen victim to it, that, you know, people with certain disabilities, and it's oftentimes an unconscious bias, but especially if people like can pass for a non-disabled person, they think that, oh, well, you know, I don't want to be around other people with disabilities. And I think in having, I mean, because even just having this like group discussion with all of you, it's just been so like awesome for me, because, you know, we kind of all get to talk about our personal experiences and kind of commiserate, but also learn from one another, and, you know, the different experiences that I might not have, but as a person with disabilities, I can still relate to. And I think, you know, so it's like almost like it would be nice to like have like a support group, or just like, you know, have a group like where we could all just go out and like go bowling. I don't know, bowling was the first thing that came to mind. That might not
I
be
love bowling.
an option, but
I'm totally down to bowl.
But, and of course we all live in completely different areas, but
we still have Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think, you know,
Zoom bowling?
if anything good came out of COVID is having this opportunity where we can actually talk. And these ladies know that some of us meet, we call it girls' night in. And, you know, sometimes they're really talking about stuff that I probably shouldn't be listening to. But I mean, it's so important, you know, that girl power and that kind of, I mean, that's a huge social need. The other thing I noticed, you know, we want to talk about full inclusion, and it's very hard to get people with IDD, or intellectual or developmental disabilities, connected to people with other disabilities. It's like they don't want to connect. And I understand that we can't force that, but, you know, we're all about full inclusion. So that's a challenge. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because that was definitely going into this webinar, that was definitely a big fear of mine, because I'm the one among the rest of you who has more of the invisible learning disability rather than the cerebral palsy, the spinal cord injury. And there was a feeling of, does it make sense that the only thing that to me that made sense was the fact that I'm a millennial. But you know, Mom, you brought up that there should be more of inclusion with that. And so now doing it makes a lot of sense why you would want to have a more expansive, broad, inclusive means of connecting all of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, we didn't even really touch on the mental health issue, you know, especially during this time of COVID. I think everyone had mental health issues, but, you know, that's going to be for part 2, I guess. We're going to have to do this again. But, you know, I think having invisible disability is really hard, because people do expect for you to whatever they expect you to do.
Be normal.
You know, if I may add my 2 cents to that, Claire, and I know you and I talked about this personally, so I won't go into too much detail, but I really feel like having you included on this was an amazing thing, because as someone who works in the disability field, I've met a lot of students, especially here in Ohio, that have invisible disabilities, who very easily say, oh, I don't have a disability, or are ashamed that they have a disability, or don't even know that they have a disability because their parents hide it from them too. And so I feel like your input on this conversation is extremely valuable, if anything, just to show that you can still talk about it and that it's okay that I may or may not identify as a person with a disability because you have an invisible disability. Either way, it's okay. And your point of view is just as valid as any of ours with a more apparent disability.
You know, one of the reasons I really, really, really love the Centers for Independent Living is because we serve all disabilities of any age. And what I really like about that is it connects us. It allows us to stay connected. Down Syndrome Society has its own little group. Autism Society has its own little group. MS Society has its own little group. Spinal cord injuries have their own little group. But we're all disabilities. We're all fighting for our right to exist. We're fighting for environmental change, as in your physical environment, ramps, accessible doors, all those things. So it really is, I sometimes have things that I can only say to my friends with spinal cord injuries because it's a safe space. But that's not to say that I can't go to Jamie and talk about those same things too, because they, on a macro level, the big picture, it's all related. It's all the same resources that we're all fighting for our kids, for the next generation, and all of that. So I'm gonna stop rambling now.
I just want to say, Claire, I think that your input is very valid, and I'm sure a lot of people would, feel the same and say like, wow, like I don't really belong in this group. I know with my students, I have a lot that are quote unquote invisible disability. And even the people who have a physical disability say, I don't have a disability. So just hearing you speak and, saying that, we go through the same issues, whether we have a disability, visible or invisible, or you don't have a disability, we all go through the same issues. We've all been bullied. We've all have dating issues, mental health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only difference is that, we got to do it a little bit different. That's all it is. But I think, and I'm so glad that Deb and Jamie decided to include more diversity, because that's what our students need to see and what the world needs to see, that we are so beautiful just together and separate, even though we have our small organization, just like Marley said, but together, that's our culture. That's what disability culture is. And it's different shades, different colors, different shapes, everything. And it's just makes it such a wonderful thing to see.
So we need more diversity, guys. So if anybody wants to be a part of part 2, email us.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a Lebanese woman. We do have Hispanic women, but there are other minorities in America that we need to hear from. If you don't speak up, we won't know what your issues are. And if we don't know what your issues are, we can't help you advocate for them.
Yep. So Ashley wrote, I feel that as well. My disability is invisible, so I didn't feel a part of the community due to the fact I don't look the typical person with disabilities. So, and then you add the mental health component, talk about invisible. Yeah, so that's what I love about working for the Independent Living Center, is the fact that it's focused on full inclusion. There are times when that can be difficult, but as long as we're going towards that trajectory to help our community just be accepting and not have special needs programming. We don't need more special needs programming. So I do want to say, we got a couple minutes left, that we will be having a survey after this. So please fill out that survey to help us to know what to do for part 2. And you can write on there if there's a topic that you want to talk about, or you want to be part of this panel. I just see that this is the beginning of a online support group. with some amazing young women. So I think if there's any other question from the participants, you can unmute yourself. You've got about 3 more minutes.
Can the participants add questions in the survey for part 2?
There is there is a blank space at the very bottom for any comments, questions, suggestions. So we have the survey linked to this webinar. So as soon as I close it today, the link to the survey will come right up, but also we'll be sending it out next week.
And so we are recording this. It is also live on Facebook at the Center for Disability Empowerment. And this recording,
and the OFN page.
And the Ohio Family Network, which is part of the sponsor of this program. So if you want to see yourselves, or you can look at Facebook Live, or we will have the recorded, edited, and then ready on our YouTube channel for the Center.
Hi, Claire.
Thank you, Claire, for the editing work. Make us look pretty.
I can at least do that.
Okay, wait, there's 2 more messages. Let's see. I can't wait for part 2. I have so many questions coming to my mind in regards to your experiences with the IEP process and the transition plan as well. Yeah, ladies, I think we're going to have to do this. It'll be good.
I will say, I did leave our emails in the chat. So if anybody has any questions for any of us, feel free to reach out via email.
All right.
We'll include you in the sequel.
Oh, really quick before we close, we do have a question in the Q&A. Is there any young men that are in the group that has cerebral palsy? There is no men in the group right now. Well, this group here, just us, it's just girls. In our virtual peer group, there is a couple of guys, nobody with CP, but everybody's welcome. So email me, jlarmer@disabilityempowerment.net, if you want to be involved in the virtual peer group. Or if you want to start one of these millennial talks with men, that's another idea we've been tossing.
Yes, we have been talking about that. Marty, do you want to get a little plug on something, little project that you're working with some friends?
Oh, sure. So I have a couple friends of mine, and one works for Ohio State University, and the other one works for Southeast Inc. Clinic. We're working on something called, right now, it's tentatively called the Vagina Monologues, but it's basically anything pelvic floor related when it comes to females. We'll be discussing sexuality, disability. We're going to talk about BDSM, devotees, mental health, intersectionality, and how that affects
adaptive sex toys.
I'm hoping, so down.
Yes, a goodie bag of sex toys is what we're hoping to give people for swag. But again, guys, this is something that we all have questions, we have concerns, but we don't always necessarily have someone to go to ask them. And that's why we're working on this. We want to, one, help you, empower you to speak up and use your voice, and also to make it fun and interesting for us all, because who doesn't like to talk about boys and their sexuality, or females and their sexuality? So, or if you're pansexual, in the middle, anywhere in the middle.
Which, ladies, it is absolutely okay to be sexual.
Yes.
We are human beings. We are allowed to be sexual.
Okay. So with that,
sorry.
No, you're right. You're 100% right.
You know, you're totally right.
Ladies, I thank you so much for joining tonight and doing this. This was amazing. And hopefully more people will be watching it on Facebook Live, because it is a topic so important. And so, friends, if you're watching this, get on the Center for Disability Empowerment Facebook page and the Ohio Family Network Facebook page, the Central Ohio Family Network page. And you can just put the link onto your webpage so that your friends can see and hear teachers, professionals. So without further ado, have a great evening, great weekend, and thank you, ladies, so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us,
Bye,
participants.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.